Hello, I'm Michael Redmond, professional Go player. In this video, I'm going to talk about the Go proverb, leave room for an extension. This proverb is talking about a position where you want to enter the opponent's side. So it's a side that is dominated by the opponent. And when you do so, you want to leave room for an extension. To be more exact, I'm talking about a two-space extension on the third line. So just to give you a peek of the correct move, black plays here. And this leaves room to extend on the right here and on the left here. So these are the two extensions that I'm talking about. And it's very useful when you want to invade your opponent's side. There are some board positions where the computer will suggest a different move, but I find those moves relatively difficult to make them work. And so I would suggest that for most human players, up to about professional 9 down, it's a good idea to follow the proverb here. So that said, let's take a quick look at the opening. Okay. So black has played 2, 3, 4 points and a tight shimari. So this kind of move has become less popular after AlphaGo and the following Go programs. But some players still play this kind of corner enclosure or this kind of opening, and it can be played at the top levels. Here black invites white to the large avalanche, which is one of the most complicated josekis that we have. And if white pushes here, this will be the large avalanche. If black plays a hane on the left. And this is one of the most complicated josekis that we have. It's become a bit rare because I think people have decided that it's not so good for white after all. So another choice that white has is white can play an Atari here, which is usually followed by some kind of a connection. So maybe a hanging connection here would give white a good shape locally. Otherwise, white can play away. So for the purpose of this video, I'm playing away for white. Black going down on the second line here is taking away white's eye space. It's also preventing various forcing moves that white had, threatening a cut at R17, for instance. So it's a preparation, taking territory, preparing to attack white. And white replies by playing the center of the right side and defending the 3 stones in the upper right. So in some cases, white might sacrifice those stones, but when white is played in the center of the side like this, it's not important for either side to follow up there. So here, I would say white's played covered on the wrong side here, but that's probably the material for a different video. So I'll come back to that in some other video. And we're just going to talk about this position, which is a chance for black. There's a side wide open there, and the question is how to invade it. And the proverb says, leave room for an extension. So that's what this move is. Okay, so let's take a look at the wrong move here. Sometimes you will see black play all the way to the right here. So it's an attack against white's lower right corner. The problem with this move is that when white pincers here, black cannot make a base quickly. So it's relatively difficult for black to make a base for this stone, the stone 1. And because of that, it's going to be relatively difficult for black to invade the left side of white 2, which means white has staked out a huge side there on the left. So one example of how black might try to continue. An example, something like this, where white has played 6 and 8 and is dominating the left side, or the lower side of the board, and black's group is still not settled. So black doesn't really have a good way to make 2 eyes for this group. Black might try an attachment underneath, so that would be this move. When black does that, black is hoping to make 2 eyes with a sequence like this. In this sequence, there's still an attachment at P2, so black would actually need 1 more move to make a living shape. Even this would be okay for white, because the lower side, that large area there, is turning into a white territory. You also have to consider the fact that sometimes white will play like this, and this would be more aggressively taking away black space. So This is another alternative for white, and it does look a bit cramped for black. So that's how playing too far to one side tends to make you cramped. And there's actually a little extra space on the left here. So black has room for a 2-space extension. Let's take a look at black playing one line to the left. So that would be this move. It looks like this still has room for a 2-space extension. So the problem with this is that it starts to involve a previous video. Actually, the last video I made for this series was called Play Away from Thickness. So white has a wall on the left. This wall in the lower left corner area could be called thickness. So when white has that wall and black plays too close to it, white is going to try to press black against that wall. So an example of that working for white would be something like this, where black is confined to a relatively small area. It's not as if black is going to die outright or get into any local trouble. So black can continue something like this, for instance, and should be able to make a life there. But you can see that black is confined to a relatively cramped area of the board, and white is dominating the center and the right half of the board at this point. So this is good for white. So this is the correct move, leaving room for an extension on both sides, but trying to play away from white's thickness on the left. So it involves both of those proverbs. That's why I made this video immediately after making the play away from thickness proverb, because I thought there was a connection. So let's look at the two ideas that white might have. White will usually play a pincer or an extension on the left or the right. So first, let's take a look at this one. White plays on the left. Black has room for a 2-space extension. White will almost always kick. And when this happens, black has a choice of extending to the 4th line or extending down to the 2nd line. I'll choose the 2nd line. Looks like black might be able to make an eye in the corner if black jumps in at Q2. So something like this might be an example of how black will continue. Black is trying to make a little space there to have at least one eye and is gradually moving out into the center. So if white curls around here, black will probably want to play something on the right at this point. So maybe a jump or maybe a knight's move. Again, it's the idea of not playing too many moves towards white's strong position on the left. So black is trying to move out into the relatively open area and is creating kind of a little box shape here, which is going to look like almost 10 points of territory. If black is eventually forced to put stones in, it might be a bit smaller than that. But it is a space that is starting to look like a living shape. So that's how this was working for black. If white extends from the other side, in this case, black can play a 2-space extension with some room to play another extension on the 3rd line here. So there's a little bit extra room on the left. The more room, the better. So this can be played, but in this particular case, I think it's a good idea for black to be moving a bit closer to the center of the board, just because this whole area is what white is going to be trying to build. So black is getting a little closer to that, preparing to erase that at the next stage of the game. So I'm going to suggest this knight move, which is making me interchangeable points of moving out further into the center or building a base on the side. So if white plays the capping move, that would be this one. Then black will be able to play something like this on the side. When black has 2 knights moves controlling the side like that, it's already enough space. So in this case, black is pretty much alive with that, what looks like almost a 10-point space on the side. And I've marked the triangle there to show you what black's next attack will be. So the point is that white's thickness, you might say, or white's control of the center is a little bit loose. So black does have ideas of attacking and starting a fight in the center also. So that potential makes this a good variation for black. This move, if white plays from the side like this, then black can kick once and jump out into the center. So in this case, black does have a little space here, which might look like an eye, at least. And black is starting to make maybe a second eye in some cases, and at the very least, black is out into the center. So this should be no problem for black. So that was my video about the Go proverb, leave room for an extension. So thank you for watching to the end, and there will be more videos like this coming out. So please subscribe to my channel. Thank you.